Bust-A-Move 2 has the player shooting various different colored orbs in an effort to combine 3 or more of the same type for points. That sounds simple, right? The idea and gameplay certainly was, but as we remember, it wasn't an easy game. In fact, it got very hard very fast. Arcade mode had that little cute green dragon bub play against multiple opponents, from an electric light to a massive face with buildings on top of it. What were they on? There were always little intros between each of Bub's encounters, but most of them involved Bub being confused or incapacitated in a number of ways. It was still family friendly, but yeah, I mean, they were smoking drugs. We distinctly remember the third stage in arcade mode simply because it was incredibly hard. There was what looked like a baby or maybe a sheep girl called Woolen, and she was simply unstoppable. The better we played, the more bubbles she'd ditch on our side to make it nigh impossible to win. It was a frustrating fight, a brick wall, that is, until we randomly beat her on one fateful day. In a battle of bubbles, we lost the will to combat our opponents, throwing out the occasional sphere to keep the game happy. What happened next? They gazed over to our growing pile of unpopped bubbles and were stumped at the lack of competition. In the end, the mad baby sheep-like thing defeated herself, with us moving nary a finger. This was probably a fluke, admittedly, but we were over the moon. After defeating Woolen, the rest of the stages were relatively straightforward, but each of them had interesting, memorable characters. Bust-A-Move 2 was a puzzler at heart, and if you didn't destroy the bubbles within a certain number of moves, the ceiling would start coming down. Puzzle mode was difficult in its own right with the randomized bubbles you were granted and the somewhat precarious shots you had to make. The goal, of course, was to get the highest score and challenge others to beat it. The likes of competition today is ruthless in games like Call of Duty and League of Legends, but these gamers never knew the ferocity of a heated Bust-A-Move duel. Something we'd never forget about Bust-A-Move 2 is the funky music. It was like a baby at the head of a nightclub band. It was silly, but memorable. Add in the Baba and Tuki sounds and the adorable animations of the characters, and you have a very child-friendly game with a very, very adult-conscious difficulty. We're sure glad Bust-A-Move 2 was part of our childhood. If you do fancy popping some circles, this game is now available on mobile. Go check it out one more time.